Hello and thanks for joining me today. I'm super happy to introduce you to Structeezy. Structeezy is a brand new plugin for Bricks I just released. I have a super offer for the next 48 hours for the early adopters. And this plugin focuses on helping you, Bricks users, get the best out of Bricks structure tree. And before we get into the details, because we will go into the details, I will give you a very quick overview so you get an idea of what is Structeezy and you can decide if it's worth watching this video further. So I'm in Bricks with a completely blank page and I want to create a landing page. So I open Structeezy. I will use some native Bricks elements. I will use a section with a container and inside of it, I will use semantic element to add an H1. I also want to add a paragraph of text, maybe 2 paragraphs of text. Inside of my section, I want another container. This container will include a UL. Inside of this UL, I will have list items because I want to create a bullet list and I will have a few of them. So with my native panel, I inject native Bricks element, exactly the same you could find this way. With the semantic tag, I inject the same element, but preset with the HTML tag and the HTML attribute. If I want more complex blueprints, I will use components. And for example, I will insert a section with a section header. And inside of it, I can add a section body with a responsive grid, maybe another one. And inside of them, I can add advanced components like cards. But I can also add preset forms, a logging form, for example, completely made of customized Bricks elements. If I have more complex needs and I will get rid of this, I can use the patterns, and patterns are either full sections or even full page with a small library for now, but it's growing. And I can add directly a hero section, or I can insert a 404 page. And once I'm done creating a landing page, with my header, my hero section, another section, and my footer, and that I want to save this for later use, I can save my custom structure and I will save this to my landing pages, and this will be my new landing page with any information for the tooltip that I will save. And it's now available in my custom structure and I can get rid of this. And on another page, on another website, I can simply select my new landing page and I will get my full structure with all of its settings. And after this very quick overview, let's get into the details and see how this works. So here we are in our brand new Bricks website. So let's start by getting our plugin and license key from the Structeezy website. I will connect to my user account. Of course, you log in with the credentials you created during the license order process. And when you are logged into your account, you will find the download and the license key under the Orders tab. Click on View Your Order. And in the order information, you will find the download to download the plugin, and you will find your license key. I will take time later to create direct access so you have the downloads and the license key immediately visible. But you know, like me, that it's always a lot of work to set up a WooCommerce site. So let's download the plugin. Here it is, and copy the license key. And back to our WordPress admin, add a new plugin, upload. We will drop the file, activate. I can get rid of this and we are ready to go. As you see, I have by default OxyProps activated. I'll deactivate it later so we can focus on Structeezy, but the two of them are working nicely together. So let's start by going to the Structeezy dashboard, and the first thing it will ask you is to activate your license. So I will paste my license key. So here it is. I'll enter my email address, the same one I used for the purchase, and I can activate my license. Perfect. Now the plugin is active. So before we enter Bricks, Let's have a look at the settings and what's available right now. Of course, the plugin is young. There are developments in progress. So on the first tab, General, you can configure the appearance. Mainly, you can choose if you want tooltips to appear in the Structeezy panel or not. Tooltips are convenient because they give you extra information about all the structures available, but when you get used to it, you may want to disable it to avoid distraction. So there are two options. The first one is for the structures themselves, and the second one is for the actions. These are the small buttons that allow you to hide or show a structure in the panel and to delete custom structure. So you can keep both active or deactivate the one you want. You can also choose, because there are a lot of structures available. So by default, a lot of them are hidden, but we can choose to have the menu expanded by default. You can also select the default group. You will see that we have several groups of structure. So by default, you will have the native groups, which shows all available native Bricks elements and third-party elements. If you have third-party libraries like Bricks Extra or any third-party library that adds elements to your Bricks editor, you will find them in the native group. But then you can choose to open by default the panel with the semantics group, the components, etc. The custom, you will see these are your custom made structure, the one you saved. So by default, you start with native, but once you get used to it, you will probably want either to focus on custom from the start or on the most used structures. So what are most used structures? Well, we just installed the plugin, so there's nothing, but by default, the option is activated to add a most used structure group to Structeezy. And once you will start using it, you will see a table below with a list of the structures you are using sorted by descending order. So we will see on top the ones you use most and at the bottom the ones you use less. Next, we have the CSS Frameworks option. So Structeezy is not a CSS framework. It injects styles, of course. When we create responsive grids, we need a minimum of styles. So by default, the plugin uses vanilla CSS and the Bricks Builder features. But if you want to, it can use CSS variables from your CSS framework. So you saw earlier that OxyProps was installed on this site. That's my default install. So Structeezy did detect it and suggests me to use OxyProps values. If I select it, we can see below that there are a few CSS default value, and these are now the ones from the OxyProps framework that are used. If I choose none, this changes to use vanilla CSS with direct values. Of course, you can customize any of these values. Currently, Structeezy integrates with OxyProps, of course, OxyProps Lite, which is the free and open source version offering only the core, the OpenProps CSS variables. But that's interesting to give it a try if you are not using yet a CSS framework. It also integrates with automatic CSS if you are an automatic CSS user, and with core framework. So if one of these frameworks is installed on your site, you can select it if you want Structeezy to use these CSS variables. Okay, and the last tab is to import and export preferences and structures. That's a very interesting feature because we will see that in Bricks editor, once you have worked on a page or on a section or on any component, any structure, and you have spent time to customize it to your needs, you will be able to save it, of course, to reuse it on the same site, but you can also export your structures and re-import them in another website or share them with any coworker so they can use it on their sites with their own Structeezy installation and their whole Structeezy license. So when you export from the plugin, you can choose to export everything. That's both your settings and your structures, but you can choose to export only preference or only custom structures. So if you export only structures, you will get a file, a Structeezy file, containing all of your custom structure that you can share and that you can re-import in another site. And to import it in another site, that's very easy. You just click either on the upload button to select a file, or you can simply pick your file and drop it on the plugin. Okay, so you have seen that there's not a lot of settings, but I would highly recommend, if you want to use your CSS framework, or if you want to adjust the default values, to do it from the start. So it will be easier for you. Anyway, if later you want to change the values, of course, if you know me, you know that everything I do is based on CSS variables. So that's the case here. So inside of bricks, these values are not directly injected in the structures and in the component. CSS variables are used, and this way, if later you want to come here and modify the value for your default inner spacing, for example, you can modify it from the dashboard, and it will be modified everywhere the CSS variable is used on your website. So I will deactivate OxyProps so we can focus on Structeezy. By the way, you see that if you have no CSS framework installed, Structeezy suggests to install OxyProps Lite. It's free, it's open source. It's up to you. If you don't want to, you can just dismiss the notice. And we can start by creating a header template for our website. So let's go to Bricks, Templates. I will create a new one. This will be my header. Publish, edit with Bricks. And now I'm in Bricks editor. So there's very little visible about Structeezy for now. The only visible thing, if you have a look at the top right corner, right here, there's a small icon to open Structeezy. So there are three ways to open the Structeezy panel. Either you click on this icon, and you can see that I shouldn't have selected the most used as my default panel because we just installed the plugin and it's empty for now. But I can also open it by right-clicking anywhere on the structure panel. I can close it using the close button, and I can also open it using the keyboard shortcut, which is Option on my Mac, or Alt if you are on a PC, S. Option S for Structeezy opens, and if I press again, it closes the panel. Okay, so Structeezy panel offers 6 groups, most used, empty. The custom one is also empty for now because we haven't created anything yet. If we click on the native one, we get all Bricks native element and third-party custom elements listed by categories, exactly with the same categories they are sorted in your Bricks element panel. As some of them have long name, it's truncated, so by hovering over it, you get the tooltip with the whole name of the element. You see that when I hover them, there's also this small eye icon that appears that allows me to hide elements. So by default, all of the native Bricks elements are visible, but it can be a good idea to keep only the ones you used often. And so I can decide, for example, that if I use very little related post, I can hide it. I can hide the metadata, the excerpt, the author, the taxonomy. And now I have a single line. And I can do the same here. For example, the rich text. I rarely use it. The button also. And the video. Okay, so I did hide them, but I did not delete them. I can, with this small icon here, expand my menu, and they are back visible. Now there is a /i icon. I can click on it, and my element will be visible by default again, even when my menu is collapsed. Okay, so this way, you decide what's visible, what's convenient for you or not. Instead of always clicking here to expand, you see that there's a keyboard shortcut, Alt plus X or Option plus X. So by using this shortcut, I can expand and collapse my menu. By default, the panel appears right beside the structure menu, but depending on your design, you may need to move it to see what's behind. So there is this big handle that you can grab and move the panel anywhere. And if you want to, you can decide to hide the structure, you can decide to hide the elements, and you still can use Structeezy panel to insert elements. So we are talking about a header. I can start from scratch, either by using native elements or by using semantic elements, that's the second menu, by using components, but I will use a pattern. For now, the library is limited, but it will grow in the next days, weeks, and months, depending on the user need. So let's start by inserting, for example, a very classical header, which is header 2. It's the first time I use it. So my browser requests access to the clipboard. That's the way Bricks works. It uses the clipboard API. So we need on each site, we install Bricks and Structeezy to allow access to the clipboard. It will be asked only once, but it's necessary. So I will click Authorize. And now my header was inserted into my page. Let's close the menu, get my structure tree back. And this is what was inserted in my page. So of course we have a full structure. We have elements with the proper semantics and attributes. And we also have some JavaScript code because we have a functional site navigation with a JavaScript code that will assign the ARIA current ARIA attributes and the active CSS class to the active link. And everything that was inserted with predefined custom CSS classes. Some of them have a few styles, some of them are completely empty shells, so you can use them to customize the structure to your own design. You can see that there is a bit of color, there's some spacing, and this is defined from the settings we created in the Structeezy settings. So I use no framework, so this uses, for example, the colors I defined. But if I was using OxyProps, this would be my brand color. If I was using automatic CSS, this would be my action color, unless you specify otherwise. And if you were using Core Framework, it will be, I think, in Core Framework, it's the primary color that is used. And same thing for the spacings. It will be your space M or whatever, your size 4 if you are using OxyProps, etc. You know your framework. But that's it for our header template. We just used a pattern. I won't modify it for now. Just keep it as it is. Let's save and get back to WordPress. So I could do the same for the footer. I won't do it because I won't spend your time. So let's go to a page. And for example, let's use our sample page and I will edit it with Bricks. So we can start building a page, opening my panel on the most used tab. Now it's not empty anymore because I have used my pattern header 2 once, so it appears in the most used patterns. So let's add a hero section to our page. We can use once again a pattern. Let's choose hero 1, for example, which is a very basic hero section with minimal styles once again, but the objective is that you have the basic structures, the basic classes to style it, and then you adapt it to your design. But then that's it with patterns, which are the most complex elements available in Structeezy. And let's have a look at the components, for example, and below our hero section, we want to create a new section. So I will open my structure and I will go to my components. And inside of my components, I have several things. Once again, a lot are hidden by default, so you can expand it to see everything or collapse it. You can adjust to keep only the ones you like and the ones you want to use the most. And as we want to create a section, we can choose from the section heads. This is the base element for a section that will create the section itself and the header inside of this section, with a title, a subtitle, and an introduction text, and that will correctly link the section to the title with the proper ARIA attributes to get the correct landmark. And all of this is done automatically by Structeezy when you click on your structure. So let's say that I want a simple section with the centered text in the heading. So I will click center, and this did inject a new section, we can see it here, with a header that's a Bricks container with the tag of header, an age group containing the title and the subtitle, and a text for the section introduction. All of this is using custom classes, seee section, seee section header, seee section center for the centered one, following the BEM naming convention. Most of the time, there's nothing or very limited styles inside of it, but they are there. So once you have added a lot of sections to your page, you don't have to go one by one to them, but you have your seee section custom class that you can tweak to design all the sections on your site. Okay, and now that I have a section, maybe I want a grid layout below it with cards, for example. So with my section selected, I will add a section body. And for section bodies, I have a wide choice. I have CSS grids, I have Flexbox, I have Flex cards, I have RAM, which is an auto-responsive CSS grid. There are plenty of options that you can choose from to get the layout you want. I will start with a simple grid 3 that will insert a container. And when I select it, you see bricks overlay that shows me the 3 columns. It's a responsive grid because the grid 3 class includes adaptive grid template columns for the various bricks breakpoints. If I go to the mobile landscape, for example, you see that it's 2 columns. If I go to mobile, it's 1. So this is done for you. And then inside of my grid, I can still add components. I can add cards, for example. There are a few ones. I will choose the image card. And here it is. And I can insert 3 of them. It's inserted with placeholder images. The placeholder images are either pulled from the Pixum Photo API or from the Unsplash API. So you are free to use them as placeholder images. And then if I want to, besides my 3 cards, I can add another section body. So let's choose, for example, a flex row centered. I'll make sure I have the correct parent selected because for now I'm on the header. I want to insert it in the section. So let's insert my flex row centered. I get a new container, and inside of this container, I can add, for example, a CTA. So I will add a button. And for example, I will add my accent button. And I will also add an outline button. And this is how we use components. So you see, components are not complete patterns. We have used patterns for our header, for our hero sections. Components are various elements that you will use and mix together to create your own pattern. And the last level, the most simple one, the most basic one, will be the semantic one. And there are plenty of them because with the semantic group, you can add to your structure, of course, bricks elements, but with presets that will assign them HTML tags depending on the use case. For example, you know that if you insert a text into your break structure, your text will be a div. By default, a text should be a paragraph. So let's collapse it to reduce the choice. But if I want to insert a text, I can simply choose a P, and this will insert a text, a bricks text element, but with a P HTML tag already assigned to it. You can see that the HTML tag is P, and I am a P tag. So with this group, and honestly, that's the one I use the most, you are able to insert elements directly with the proper tags and the proper attributes. Okay, so now maybe one of the most interesting part of Structeezy, the custom structures. So for now, if I go there, there's nothing because I haven't created yet, or to be precise, I haven't saved yet any custom structure. But maybe this card, this section, I just created. This was a lot of work, and I want to add it to my library so I can reuse it on this site or maybe on another site. And that's very simple. We just have to select from the structure the parent element that we want to save. So if this is this section with all of its children, I will choose my section. If I want only this grid with the card, well, I would select only my container. So let's say I want to save the section. I can right-click on my parent element. In the bricks context menu, there is this Structeezy item with a floppy disk. I click Save. This opens the Save Custom Structure pop-up. And as this is the first one, there's no existing category, so it suggests me to create a new one. So let's create a sections, for example, category, where I will store all of my custom sections. I will give it a name, my awesome section. I can create a tooltip. That's exactly the same tooltip you have seen, but this can be a way to remember what's exactly in this section. So I can say it is a section with header centered and grid 3 with image cards and CTA, for example. And I click save. And now in my custom panel, I have a section category with my element that's saved. Of course, that shows a long name. So my tooltip is useful to know what's inside of it. It's a section with header centered and a grid 3. And as any element, I can decide if this one will be visible by default or not. So by default, any element you create is visible, but if I want to hide, I can hide it. And then I can toggle the visibility with my expanded or my keyboard shortcut to have only the visible one. If I want, I can delete it. So if I click on delete, I will be asked for a confirmation because before it is completely removed from the database. So I don't want to delete it for now. Let's imagine that I have made some tweaks to my hero section. I also want to save it. This time I already have a sections category existing and it's the only one, so it's selected by default. I can create a new one if I want, but I will add this one to sections, and this will be my hero one, for example. Simple hero section. Save. Okay, and maybe I want to keep my grid, so I will save it. I will create a new category, and maybe that can be my grids, or that can be my features element, that can be my post query loop, anything. By the way, this could be a query loop. I could decide, let's try it and cancel for now, but I could decide that this uses the query loop. I could define my query to anything. I won't do it for now. It's a new site. There's no post for sure, but we can see that there's the query here. And if I save, let's create a category for post, for example. I will name it grid 3 query loop. This will be a responsive grid 3 with posts, query loop, and image cards. Let's save it. I have a new category with my responsive grid. Okay, so you get the point. Anything can be saved. These are big structure, but if I have worked only on this element, there are no children, but it's a button, and I have styled it in a very specific way, and I want to reuse it. Well, I can simply save it, create a new category. This will be my buttons. It will be a fancy button. Can do everything. Let's save. And I have my fancy button. Okay, by the way, we have started using several things. So if I switch to the most used category, some things have been populated. And we can see that I have used semantic elements, components, patterns, not custom yet because I have created them, but I have not used them yet. So let's try using them. I will get rid of this. So I have a blank page and I can come back to my custom tab and I will insert my custom hero section. Then I will insert my awesome section. Perfect. I'll collapse everything. Now I can add a new section. And inside of my section, I can add my custom grid. And why not my fancy button? And everything was added to my new section. And maybe I have created a full landing page and I'm interested in keeping this structure. And of course, I cannot choose the parent because there are multiple parents. So this is why there is this floppy button here, that is a Structeezy button to save all as a custom structure. So let's save. And this time I will create a new category that can be my landing. And by the way, you cannot use space in the category. So it can be either an underscore or a dash, or I like to use Pascal case or camel case. So it can be a landing page. The name will be a custom landing. Anything for the tooltip. Landing page with fancy features. I can save. And now I have my new landing page categories with my custom page. And if I get rid of everything, now I create a new page and I want to recall my landing page as a blueprint for my new page. I can simply select it and I get my full page inserted. And by the way, we can go and check, but we did save our grid with a query loop, and it is re-injected with the query loop. We can see there is the query loop here. And if we go and look at the query loop, it will use the parameters we have saved for the structure. So everything you preset and then you save. So either it is settings, elements settings, query loops, we have seen SVG code, JavaScript code. Everything is saved and can be re-injected and reused. Okay, so let's save it. Let's check what it looks like on the front end. And so we have our page with all of our sections. We have our navigation. So of course, if I use it, the home page will work, but I haven't created the other one, so I will get a 404. Okay. Just to check, I'm on the home page. I told you that the JavaScript handles the ARIA current. If I have a look, I can see that my home link has the ARIA current equal page attribute. And if I move to the about page, now it's not anymore on the home link, but it should be, and it is on the about link. Okay, so that's the small piece of JavaScript code that's part of the header pattern that handles that. And by the way, it's part of the header pattern, but it's also part of the navigation component. So with the navigation component, you can use only the navigation part in your custom patterns or your custom structures. Okay, maybe to finish with, let's go back to the dashboard. So now that we have used the plugin, if we go to the structures, you see that we have, and it's limited to the 20 most used, but the plugin keeps track of what you use most and what you use less. And of course, this is used to populate the most used tab. So the more you use something, the most visible and easily accessible it will be for you. If you want to, if you are a fan of statistics, you can download your counters and you will get everything and check what you use most. You can reset the counters, and this will reset also the most used group. And now that we have created custom structures, we can go to the export and we can choose to export our custom structures. And we get a Structeezy structure JSON file that you can use and re-import either on your site. Imagine you have deleted structures that you didn't want to. Well, luckily you had a backup because you did download your structures. You can re-import them. Or you are finished working on this site, you are starting a new project for a new client, you want to reuse structures you already have created, you can import and re-inject in your new site. Okay, I can do it. And I have a message telling me the structures that were imported successfully. What's important to notice here is that if you import structures, it's not replacing what's on your site. So if I already add structure, They are not deleted and completely replaced by the new file. How the plugin works is that it will keep your existing structures, it will add new structures, and if during the import it finds structures with the same category and the same name, it will overwrite the structure that was previously on your site. That's important to know. So if the names are completely different, you will keep everything. But if they have the same category and the same name, for Structeezy, this is the same structure. And by importing it, it means that you want to overwrite or replace the one currently in your database by the new import. Okay, I hope you liked this video. I hope you like this new plugin. I hope you find it useful. We are July the 29th. The plugin is officially available. It's still in its early stage, so there is a very interesting offer for early adopters that will last for 48 hours. Check it if you are interested. If you check the documentation site for now, you will find it's nearly empty. I'm currently working on it, and there will be more and more information on it soon. I'm looking forward to seeing you in the community. I wish you a very nice day, and I'll see you in the next video.